Yeah, basically, we just need you to make a video about the pick'ems.
Yeah, guys, this is going to be great. Just check this one out. Well, go with me, okay? It's a fun concept. Let's just see where we go, all right? This is fucking improv, baby. You guys probably think when you see this title that this is going to be a video about women saying about how they agree with all things men like and, classic traditional values. And that's why, they're the
Thorin,
one that...
Thorin, if I can just get your attention. It's pick'ems, not pick
Look, I'm trying to do something right now. So that, like, they're basically not like the other guys.
You've gotten confused with the meme there.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Damn. Yeah, I haven't had my gamer subs yet. That's the thing. Gamer subs. Delicious and energizing. 10% off with the code Thorin. Thorin. Pick them up at gamersubs.gg. So obviously, IEM Rio is well underway. We've had the first phase, which was the challenges stage. I hate the way they've changed the terminology because people don't know from the old school. Legends used to mean you were top 8 in the playoffs. Now that's like contenders or champion stage or something. Now what used to be the first part of the major, the part where you finished 9th to 16th, is now the Legends stage. So they've ruined that whole concept. But then again, we're all congratulating Dupree for just making it to majors that like IHC players qualify to. So what does it even mean to make it to a major, right? But let's not get caught in the weeds. So in the first phase of this pick'em, you can go watch the video, I got 6 out of 7. And I completely messed up the 3-0 and the 0-3. Now, look, Big actually had me in position to maybe get that 3-0. And even though they got through, I'm glad I didn't bet on them. I could never have predicted like the overperformance of their players. So I thought they were a dodgy pick in that sense. And quite frankly, if you go look, OG, one of my picks out of the 7 at the bottom that didn't make it, mad overperformed. Oh, I wouldn't say overperformed. They just had really strong fragging performances. They just couldn't win the game, sadly, and they had to play some very tough opponents. My 0-3 was Greyhound. No regrets there. They are a terrible team. The fact that they won a map, who cares? Like, I don't even particularly think it was anything impressive. I don't think teams like that should be at the major, quite frankly. That's why I wouldn't call the first portion of the tournament the major. It's fine for them to qualify to the major qualifier, like we used to have. So anyway, I got 6 out of 7 of the 7 along the bottom. I got everyone except OG. So I won't go in order of where they finished, but I got Vitality, Cloud9, Fnatic, Mouse. Who else did we have? Outsiders and Furia. There we go. There's the teams I had. And by the way, everyone else was crying their eyes out and going, oh, Cloud9, oh, maybe time to kick Nafani. Vitality, oh, it's just Siwoo. The team's not even good. Like, what's going on? Maybe they need a new IGL. You absolute peons. They lost some BO1s. I mean, Vitality even lost one to Outsiders. Spoiler, I bet on Outsiders to win that one. That was an obvious trap game for Vitality. If you didn't think Vitality and Cloud9 were going to win the best of 3s, basically, unless they played each other, they were going to beat everyone else. Those two teams are still teams that will be in the playoffs, as you'll see in a moment. And quite frankly, Vitality could win the tournament. They're probably the 3rd best team in this tournament. And Cloud9's still a dark horse to win the whole thing. It's just, will they get it together on stage, or will they be pushed to the limit like they were by Imperial? So let's get into this pick'em, and we'll see where I'm going on the next stage to get that old diamond coin. Because the best thing is, since I'm actually not going to be at this major, I might be able to actually bloody stream the game or whatever it is you have to do to get the coin this time. Like I should have gotten a couple of times ago. So here we are in the game. And as usual, I'll go through all the teams, then I'll pick out the ones I'm taking. So we got FaZe, still the best team in the world. Best part about that previous part of the tournament, that previous stage, is all those narratives around FaZe aged very poorly. Because remember, it was supposed to be, because they just didn't win a very close game against Cloud9 at EPL, and therefore go to the semis or the final or win. Supposedly they've dropped off, they're shit. By the way, 2 events ago they won IEM Cologne boys. But okay, they're just not that good anymore. They've lost their mojo. But here's the problem. Who's the best team in the world? I kept saying, just tell me who the best team in the world is. No one would do it. Can't be Na'Vi, right? Because Na'Vi was arguably just as bad at Pro League, if not worse, in the group stage. Then it can't be Team Liquid because they didn't win the tournament. It can't be Vitality or Cloud9, even though Vitality won Pro League, because they both went 0-2 in the BO1s. And oh, that's right. That's all the teams. So nobody's the best team in the world. No one's the favourite. Brilliant. You've all argued your way out of analysis. No. FaZe Clan is the best team in the world. They are the best team this year. They are the team most poised to win this major because what makes them a truly great, historically great team is not just that they win, it's that they win in the most unique fashion ever, always in a clutch capacity, by coming through in the late game and in difficult situations and winning clutches and winning whatever map it is in the third map and getting that key win when you lose your own map first or you go down at one point in time on the map you need to win on. They are so good at that I will bank on that all day. In the same way as when I look back, I used to bet on the potential, but I used to regret some of those picks of Astralis and TSM when they would always lose in the semis. Because part of me knew they haven't done it yet. FaZe does do it regularly. So until I see them lose, I am taking FaZe Clan. So easily I'll be taking FaZe Clan in a moment. Na'Vi just has way too much skill. And that whole simple storyline where he's met his mom again now, he's reconnected with family. In theory, like obviously things are still going on in his country, but it's not necessarily dominating everyone's minds as much. Maybe it's in a bit of situation where they can concentrate on the major a little bit more now. I think this team is primed, and especially with the recent failures, for Blade and the rest of the team to get them to a really high level, to at least get through this phase, and then the playoffs to be very dangerous. Every round they go in the playoffs, my prediction, they will get more dangerous. It will be a bit like the last major where they come in a little bit scuffed, and then they get harder and harder to beat. That's why the best chance to beat them, if you're not FaZe, will be in the quarterfinals like when Heroic did. Like if they play someone like Outsiders or Cloud9 or maybe even as a crazy outsider, someone like NiP, there's a world where they could lose in the quarterfinals. But if they don't, and if they get through that or they get an easy draw, they're going to be so hard to deal with in the semis of the final. And Simple's the best player in the world. He will be the best player in the world again. I think Ziwu's form's great, but I don't know if Vitality is going to be as good as Na'Vi. I take them very easily here. And yeah, people like Bit have underperformed, Electronics underperformed. I think some of that turns around here. Maybe not 2021 levels, but they'll be very, very good again and potentially the team with the most firepower. Then you've got NiP, I think a mad underrated team at this event. I have a lot of faith in Alexi B. I think this is actually the right sort of team for him to get. The mistake I made when he was in G2 was thinking that he had the captain's personality, something that from the comms and talking to him he does not have. He is a very good tactician, like an MSL or a Lurpis. He is a really good mind for the game. He can call very well both on the fly and from spawn and read a demo, but I don't think he has a forceful personality. And so I think his issue was he can't control superstar players like Nico. I don't actually know necessarily if they had issues with Monacy, if he was trying to rein him in, if he was not letting him go loose. I don't know what it was, but I do think that the G2 team, there were two big names for him. This is more his speed. These are really good players, and yeah, they're lacking an AWPer, but they've got everything else. These are really good players, and I think even things like Hampus can secondary call and can play on the outskirts of the map. I think there's so much this team can do, and I think they're a really solid team to be either borderline to make top 8 or just straight up make top 8. Then we have Ents. Yes, I overhyped them before I saw the roster play because I really thought Valde might just have a bounce back. He hasn't thus far. He's been one of the issues in the team. Dika is still really good, and it actually looks like he's getting better and better. Sun Pius does what he needs to, and if anything, performs at I'd say above the level people thought he would have when he dropped off after the amazing IEM Cologne one-off run with Movistar. I actually think Madden's probably doing better than people expect. Snappy's a solid player. The problem they have is just cohesion. The map pool looks a bit ropey because they can't close games. They're in loads of these games. And then for some reason, they can get leads, they can get early kills, but man, they really will bleed away a lot of the scenarios. Because late game scenarios and 2v2s and 3v3s is about essentially how you play off each other and how you understand each other and how you calm and stuff. And that seems to be the big falling down point. So even though I'd love to make them top 8, I'm actually feeling like they're probably not going to be in this scenario. Certainly not a 0-3 team though. Maybe famous last words. Sprout. You know what? I actually think Sprout, let me think how to describe this. I think they're a legit underdog here, actually. I think Sprout is what people thought Gamer Legion and think Bad News Eagles is. I actually think Sprout are some solid enough players. I think they're probably slightly better than the names suggest. And I think if you look at it, their map pool even looks pretty decent. I could actually see them causing some upsets here. I don't think I'll take them to come top 8, but I do think they're a team where if someone was going to shock, they might be one of the teams that does it out of the small names. I wouldn't put it on some of the others in the tournament. Then you have Heroic. Look, yeah, Heroic sort of turned the ship around a bit. they don't seem to have any ceiling that says they can win this tournament. I would be surprised if they can make semi-finals unless they get the ridiculous draw like Ed Scott getting Copenhagen Flames last major. I think the big problem they have is Stown is not one of the best players in the world anymore. Cadian is too streaky as a sniper. He's a very good IGL. The map pool, just because it's heroic, they always have issues closing out as well. Something about Danes. They're either Astralis or they just have issues closing out. Have you ever noticed that? And they just seem like a team where they do get affected by the stage and by the big moments. And so I could see them certainly getting out of this stage. They're right on the border for me. They could win some big games. They could even beat some top teams and maybe even doing a best of 3 against a big squad. But I could also see them being in that 2-2 game and maybe losing on the third map and just going out and not making top 8. Spirit, I think, did well enough to get here. I think there's a world where they could win BO1s. I don't think this team is capable of doing much more. I do think the firepower's not bad. It's not as good as it was at the last major, but you know what? Patsy has turned out to be a revelation. Pretty solid player, actually. Better than this team. Wonderful, remember, is 17 years old. And yes, he has that background. By the way, that's like mirroring Simple's career. He looks like he's going to be really good. He already's got some chops now. I don't know if he's going to do it in a major, is my problem. 17-year-old kid playing his first big major. That's a lot of pressure to have. But if he can go off for even a map or two, they can be borderline top 8. They can even win some games and at least put some other people in danger. Then we're going to go to Team Liquid. I think of all the top teams, this is the one I'm underrating. I think it's not what it's hyped up to be. I think what they did at Pro League was an overperformance. I think Yukinda hasn't been quite as good at majors, quite frankly. Go check that out. I think people are also going to be prepared for some of the way they play. I think they aren't elite enough on any maps. That's the problem. They actually have a pretty decent map pool now, and they can win a lot of maps, and they don't choke in the late games as much, but they're just not elite enough on maps. Like, I can't guarantee their home map win, and then the roster strength they don't have at the moment because Alicia's never got back to that level again. They don't have like a Ziwu. And Yukinda ain't it because of the role he plays. So the problem I have is they're going to be top 8. I'd give them that. There's a world where, by the way, they might also feel like the 2-2 game and like heroic. But I don't think they can go too far in this major. Mouse, look, I'll be real. I always think they're overrated because a lot of it was from online play and then the one run with Cologne before they had exertion. Technically, it's exertion. The problem I have is if you go look at the previous phase, they massively overperformed individually. Like, I know before they probably underperformed on LAN and they weren't as good as they were online, but I do not believe those, especially the exertion ones, those numbers aren't going to happen again. So in that scenario, when you look at this group of teams here, it's going to be tough for them to win best of 3s. I think they can grind out a best of 3 or 2, but I don't think they can't win 3, put it out with. So they've got to win some BO1s. I don't know that's going to happen for this team, quite frankly. Sure, they play Team Liquid in the first BO1. You'd still favour Team Liquid to win that. So I actually think they're in a tough spot. I don't think actually they're going to get out in this phase. Bad news, Eagles. I have no faith in this team at all. I think this team is mega overrated. Go look who they played in the previous phase. They played fucking nobody. I don't care. Yes, some of it's because those teams upset other teams. Yeah, that doesn't matter. You didn't beat those teams. So I'm not giving this team any chance for that stuff. In fact, I might even be a hater and put them 0-3. There is some skill in the team, so it might be hating to put them 0-3. But you look at the rest of the teams out there, you're going to have to pick someone half decent to put 0-3. And this is nowhere near a top 8 team for me. I don't think there's any world they're making the playoffs. Outsiders, I do think are perennially underrated. I even underrated them myself when they played Fnatic because I looked, and even though they were the underdog again, I thought, well, look, the map pool favours Fnatic, the veto favours Fnatic. It's got to be Fnatic, right? And then Outsiders, of course, just dusted them off. Now, true, Fnatic turned up like shit in that game, but Outsiders just proved they're one of the hardest teams in the world to play. I think they're going to be top 8 at this major. There's even a chance they go to the semis. Then we've got, obviously you have to understand players like Fame have to keep performing. Young player, players first major, that's going to be a bit risky. But I look at players like Flit, I look at players like Jim, Kickett's a veteran. I think there's enough in this team. Norbert doesn't even have to fucking do, he's the new Sanji or something, isn't he? So I think this team, they're a sneaky, they're probably another team that'll be 2-2, but I think they can get out because they're just so good at punishing teams in those scenarios. Big is a massive shock they made it this far, but guess what? Go look at the numbers, an insane overperformance. They played a lot of bad teams and they just fed off them. So there is no universe where they're all performing like this. And by the way, people like the newer players like Sin, I don't buy it. And then secondly, Sirison, I've just seen too much of Saracen at this point in time. He's not going to do that on LAN. He cannot be like a Ziwu. He can have individual games where he pops off. And he could certainly win them some BO1s again, but I don't believe in him over a best of 3 to make the playoffs. They're borderline because somehow they match up well and they all seem to do their homework. And I love the way they play in the game and their cohesion and communications and team play, but they're just not a good enough team. It's not a good enough lineup. Maybe when they get Farvan back, we can start cooking with gas. Then we'll go to Furia. Now, this is the opposite of big, right? They're a team with the players. They're a team that should be way better than they are in the server because the names are fire. This could be one of the most skilled teams in the world, but it doesn't really seem to show up enough. Quite frankly, the map pool has fallen off a cliff. They even have a hard time in BO3s often and against lesser opponents. I would actually say at this particular tournament, I think they are mad bait to not even get out and make it to the playoffs. I would pick some lesser teams in your mind to make it over them. Yeah, there's a world they turn it on and win the games and get through. Maybe they're even the team you'd pick as like a 3-0 because they could just bullshit it and win 3-0 and then play someone in the 2-0 game that's like not that good and just have a Queserato performance and get through. But that's it. I'm probably not going to pick them in my main 8. I just don't believe in them as a team. I think they fall apart a lot. Fnatic, look, I love to bet them as an underdog because they match up well in terms of map pool. The players are better than you'd think for the name value. But you saw in that series against Outsiders what happens when you don't have not even anyone approaching a superstar. Like Crims hasn't been that for years now, guys. The problem they have is they're just not a good enough team overall. Like as a team, they're good, but the players aren't a good enough team, aren't good enough players to make them as a team really dangerous. They're just a good outside underdog team, a dark horse team who can cause upsets. Vitality has underperformed thus far. The moment's gotten to them a bit. They've started slow. Ziwu's gone mental and had to carry them. But yeah, that with Spinks hasn't played so well. That happens. He's up and down in this team. Apex is calling a little bit dodgy. Magus played like shit. Dupree took his time. Yeah, there's all the factors. But you know what? That's called, this is when you buy low and I'll sell high. So I'm going to buy them here, and I'll probably sell them at the semi-finals. I think they're making top 8. It's a lock for me. I think they're just too good a team. They do have a problem winning the major, which is they aren't like world-class, or they aren't the best in the world on any one map. They can't guarantee a map win. And I'm not just talking about against, like, obviously not everyone can win against FaZe and Na'Vi, but against some of the other teams, they'll lose their map pick, so that's a problem. And then Cloud9 has all the pieces to be so good. I actually do think Nafani's a bit overrated. I'm with Maui on that. He hasn't got to this level on LAN yet that he showed online and in some of the lesser matches, but they're such a strong team. Shiro is looking like he's finally breaking out and even doing things where he breaks out of that passive playstyle and forces the game like he did against Imperial. Axel's up and down, but obviously he has a checkered history with the majors. Hobbit might have some things on his mind. I don't know what's going on with him generally. I think Inters is fucking fire. I think Nafani's doing an all right job. I think this is another team primed to potentially level up a bit more on this stage, get to top 8, and then probably blow it in the playoffs when the big stage is there, the big pressure's there. I wouldn't bet on this team in pressure games. They're one of those teams where I've just seen they do crumble. And so, I mean, quite frankly, they've had so much confidence against FaZe. I think they'd have to get FaZe in the quarterfinals to get to the semis. Otherwise, there's a lot of teams, even teams that are worse than them, I think probably beat them. So the hard thing here, I always like to start 0-3, remember, is how do you pick a 0-3 here? Like, logically, it's between Ents, could happen. It's not impossible. Just I think the map pool is pretty solid. Sprout, another good map pool. B&E, I just don't believe in them generally. Spirit, maybe, if everything goes terribly. Big, you got to at least put Big on the table, right? They could have just mad underperformance and get wrecked. And I would say the other one is potentially Fnatic. These are the teams we're picking from here. Now, what's funny is my initial feeling is either Ents just completely flops, but I feel like they can get a win here or there, at least one win. I think Sprout's map pool's decent. Sure, they've got some inexperienced players, but somehow I get the feeling they're just another team that if they're the underdog can do it in terms of get at least one win. Spirit, I do think there's a world where they just individually, like Woody Patsy turns up, Chopper calls a bunch of shit games, they veto poorly and they go 0-3. I don't think Mouse really will go 0-3, so I won't put them in. B&E, I don't believe in them, but at the same time, they never quite seem as bad as I think they are. I feel like this is a Big or Fnatic angle, quite frankly. And so consider, I think Big's roster is the one that has to collapse in every element, including Saracen. I'm actually going to be a hater and say Big. I actually do like some of the players and some elements in the team of the project. And I love the idea German Counter-Strike could be stronger. But I actually think there's a world where they're the team that 3-0 the first one, like, oh my, well, they did 3-0, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, they made it through, like, wow, great job, and then they just get smashed in this one and do shit. So I'm going to be a hater and say that. It was either them or B&E or Sprout. And the problem is, I just think big, it has to be them that fail, I think, this time. I think it's just a world they do. Like, think about this. What if they lose the BO1s? They need to win a BO1, definitely. Obviously not just avoid video, but have any chance. If they lose the BO1s, who can they even play in the last match? Like, there's a world where in the last match you're playing like Fnatic or fucking, I'm touching the mouse, Heroic. There's all, it's too dangerous. I'm putting them 0-3. In terms of my 3-0, remember, I do that at the end. I pick my 7 most likely, and then I pick my 8th team, and I try to pick one of them that, like, if it's debatable for 7 and 8, I pick the one that could 3-0. So we're going to go easily FaZe Clan. I've given you all the reasons before. Just a fantastic team. Also, the fact that they do it by committee means they can survive bad games, and they have a killer mindset, so they can turn it around, and they have a great map pool. Na'Vi's just too good. They're just too good. If they fail this, I think Simple has to have a really bad tournament. I don't think they can fail otherwise. Even if the rest of the team collapses, they'll somehow get through this phase. Those two are locks for me. Then I'm going... I mean, I've got to say, actually, from everything I've seen, even though there's a world that maybe they might betray me, like maybe Fame players like shit, who the fuck knows. I just think the style of play and the grit they've shown me, I've got to take Outsiders. I think Outsiders is a really solid team to get through. I think they're one of my top, not my top 3 teams, but I do think they'll get through. Like, just... I think there's better teams than Outsiders, but I just feel like they are a really solid team to get through in this phase, unless the young players betray me. Then I'm going to go Vitality. As I said, I mean, ZywOo contended for best player of the tournament already, might be the best player in the world. He's contending now with Simple with that title. And this team, look, it's just a really solid team. It has its flaws, but that made people focus on the flaws. And then when they win, just get real quiet and don't mention any of their strengths. Well, how are they winning, guys? And it isn't just ZywOo. Fuck off with that shit. This isn't like when he had the Kyojin lineup, which ironically, you all wanted him to keep. I didn't, because it was a bomb-ass lineup beating bad teams. Like, who did they win IEM Winter over, guys? Or NiP without Device and with Forzy. Oh my God. And then they beat Na'Vi at the end in BO1. Okay. Or Nuke, rather. They beat Na'Vi, and did they win the tournament? Nah, they didn't, did they? So stop overrating that. There's some very good players in this team, and a lot of veterans as well. Really good for a major like this. So I'm taking Vitality, definitely. Then we're going... Team Liquid. Let's just be real. Look, Team Liquid certainly has some players who historically can shit their bed, and they could lose a bunch of these BO1s, and they could be in trouble in one of the BO3s. But I think now the team is well-rounded enough to make it through. I don't even need OC to be that good. Like, as long as Kindar and Elise are good, 2 players I can pretty much rely on. Nitro's going to call a solid game. I don't really know what I feel about the whole... Like, I actually do think Daps has been a good coach so far, and I even actually checked this. Actually, some of us are wrong. Like, he has been taking more timeouts than you realise. We don't always notice which team's taking the timeout and that jazz. So actually, I do think he's helped turn the team around. I notice everyone gives the credit to Kindar, but I think Daps has been quite influential as well. So I'm taking Team Liquid to get out. I think they're going to make playoffs. Then we're going... Right, here's the problem. Obviously, Cloud9 can betray me. They can. But as mad as this sounds, this might sound like a weird angle, I actually think the fact there's so many strong teams means they'll play a strong team. They'll even maybe feel like an underdog and win that best of 3. And so I think actually they do probably get out. I'd be more worried if they were playing, again, really bad teams. It was like, oh, they're going to fail the whole thing. So I'm going to take Cloud9 to get out. I think they're a pretty solid team too. And I don't want to risk them for the 3-0. I don't think they can be trusted for the 3-0, and I do think they'll get out. So I wouldn't want to put them there. So now for my last 2 spots, it's between NiP, Heroic, and probably Furia. So I've got to pick 2 of these 3. And I've got to go 1-3-0. Right, I've got to tell you right now, based on what I said before, I actually think the 3-0, it's between Furia. It's between Furia and Heroic. Because here's the thing, like, if you go to the old calculator BS, yeah, NiP could get in a world where, in theory, like, it's possible they could play against, like, fucking something ridiculous. Like if Vitality gets upset, maybe they can... Like, it's not impossible NiP can 3-0, but the problem is I actually think they're going to be a sleeper in this phase, and they're actually going to get through anyway. So I'd rather take them as a guaranteed team, I think. So then I'm going to take... And by the way, before I was like, well, what about the AWPA? Like, where are all the other AWPAs? Let's go through the teams, shall we? So the teams that I haven't got making it through, I've Sun Pius. Yeah, slightly better than Rez. Better AWPA, certainly. Not some monster. Also very inexperienced at majors. Sprout, who gives a fuck. Heroic, Cadian. I don't even know that he's a much better AWPer than Rez necessarily in terms of like skill and hitting the shots. Wonderful's just 17 on his first LAN. Mouse has Tosh, who I think is going to fail again at the big moment. Don't give a fuck about BNE. Nikados is, I don't even think he's better than Rez, and he is a primary AWPer. So, yeah, you know what? Who gives a fuck about that? It's not going to matter, is it? So then for my 3-0, it's between... Here's the thing, Ents. I'd love to pick you, but I can't after the way you betrayed me at these last tournaments. That's why I bet against you in the final of the ESL Challenger and won. Thanks for the money, biatch. I'm not picking you, Sprout. There's a world I pick Heroic here. Like, obviously, people would say, oh, what the fuck, you picking NiP over Heroic? Like, look, I get it. In theory, Heroic's a better team. But they just fail me in all the ways I need them to succeed. And quite frankly, this could be the major where they don't get through. I know there's also a world where that could be a Team Liquid or a Cloud9, but... Nah, I believe in outsiders, Cloud9 team, more than I do Heroic. So, unless I go Heroic 3-0, it's Heroic or Furia, right? Here's the funny thing. Here's a weird angle for you. I think the Brazilian teams are playing worse because of the crowd. I think the cheating helps. I think IHC should have 2-0'd that series and completely outplayed 0-0 Nation. But good old cheating, that sure seemed to help, didn't it? That's what I think. But I just don't think 3-0. I don't think Heroic 3-0 is the problem. But there's a world they do. Like, the problem is, they are the better team than Furia, and they could win the BO1s. Let's see who they play first. They play Outsiders first. I'd probably take them to lose that game, though. And then, I mean, who cares? I might just go Furia for this one. Like, the problem is, I said I don't think they're going through, though. In that case, I'll take Heroic. Fuck it. Of the two teams, look, Furia can just turn up and smash up the server. But fuck it. Maybe Heroic does 3-0. Maybe that is what happens overall. Yeah, there we go. I think I'm liking these pick'ems, actually. I got 6 last time. I think this time I'm going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to at least get my 5. And I think there's a world I can get 7 here. I don't necessarily know about these two, because I do think these are the hardest to predict because of the stupid BO1s. But I'm feeling very good, at least 6 out of 7. I'll see you in the playoffs. Oh, by the way, I will be doing a competitive edge betting segment about this phase and what picks to do for the opening round. It'll be on the Last Free Nation CSGO channel sometime later today or tonight or whatever. And then we'll put it out really late night and you'll have a chance to still make the bets. And then also, I'll be doing all the other rounds of the playoffs on my Twitter. So if you go to my Twitter, I'll put my bets up there, who I'm picking, tell you which games to avoid, what the trap ones are, what I think the bad odds are. Yeah, there's my pick'ems.
Yo, this is Alup. You got pretty big balls to watch Thorin's YouTube video.
This video was kindly supported by Ahmed Hadjou, Hades GOUD, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Jensen Goh, Kovacevicd, Ord, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Torin, and as always, special thanks goes out to my main man, Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my upcoming content? Maybe you want to ask a question in my monthly AMA. Would you like teasers to find out who the guests are for upcoming interviews and shows? Maybe you want to take part in one of those lengthy esports discussions with me that can go all over the place. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrolluminati today, where, in the description box below, there's a Patreon link.